Hello, everyone. This video is an overview of the External Cause Index, which is a part of your ICD-10-CM manual. I know that this index causes a lot of confusion, but I promise that the more you get used to using it, the more often you see codes from this index, the more it'll make sense. So please just go into it with an open mind, and I promise the more you work with it, the easier it'll be, okay? So what are external cause codes? So external cause codes are codes that describe accidents or violence or natural disasters that cause injuries or illnesses. So they are supplemental codes that we use to provide a more complete picture of what's happening with the patient. They are optional for most places. When you are working in the field, your job will tell you if and when they use specific external cause codes. Their primary purpose is for statistics and for making specific policies related to certain types of injuries or conditions. So they do not relate to a higher level of reimbursement, but they do provide a more complete picture about what is going on with the patient. And like I said, it will really depend on your place of employment. You might be using external cause codes and you might not. Some agencies just use a few, like they might only use an external cause code if the injury was related to domestic violence or an automobile accident or military service or something like that. If that's the circumstance, they will tell you when you're going to use external cause codes and which ones they use. So that's going to really depend on your place of employment when you're actually in the field. For the national exam, it will be very obvious when you're using external cause codes because you are doing multiple choice, right? And so you will be able to see, hey, these external cause codes match up with what is being described in the documentation. But otherwise, it's really just going to depend on your place of employment. The other things that external cause codes can help identify are the location of an incident. So if it happened in a grain elevator or a factory, or even like your kitchen or your bathroom, we have codes to help with that. And also like the activity that the patient was participating in. So boating, ice skating, skydiving, horseback riding, anything like that, or the status of the patient. If the patient is a military personnel, if they're civilian, those kinds of codes are available. So we could get a very clear picture about what is going on and what caused a very specific condition. Okay, so that's what external cause codes are. What is how are they used in practice? So whenever we are using external cause codes, it's important to remember they are never going to be the first listed diagnosis because they are just describing the circumstances. They're not describing the injury itself. So if you have a laceration, you would never put a code about, falling as the first listed diagnosis, because that's not the diagnosis. That's the circumstances that cause the laceration. Okay, so external cause codes are never going to be the first listed diagnosis. And the other important note is that coders should assign as many external cause codes as necessary to fully describe the circumstance. And this is probably what makes it most confusing, because you'll often have situations where we will describe how the injury happened and also the activity that caused that the patient was engaged in at the time of the injury. And sometimes there's some overlap there. So if you have somebody who fell through the ice while they were ice skating, we might have a code that says, the injury that was sustained when they fell. And then we'd have external cause codes that would say fall through the ice, and then another one that would say ice skating. And so that seems redundant, but when we're using this index and these kinds of codes, we want to use as many codes as we can to fully describe the circumstance. So that's usually where I see students getting tripped up. Here's an example of that. So patient fell while riding their horse and sustained a concussion. So we would have a code for the concussion. You would also have a code for fall off of a horse, which is the cause of the injury, and also a code for horseback riding. And that, that seems like there's some overlap there. We already have fall off a horse. We know what happened. And also horseback riding was the activity. This is not to try to double up. This is just an example of how fully we want to document when we're using these kinds of codes. So yeah, sometimes you'll have this situation where you'll have something like falling off a horse and also horseback riding, and you think, well, duh, what else would have happened? But there could have been some other activity they were engaged in. Maybe it was polo or something like that. And we just want to be as specific and complete as possible. So let's keep going here. So what is the external cause index? So just like the alpha index that we've been using to code other diagnosis codes, we have the external cause index, and it's structured exactly the same way as the alpha. And actually, sometimes the alpha will refer you to this index in order to find a more specific code. But it's arranged in the same way. We have the main term, it's arranged alphabetically, and then we have subterms, and there's some cross-reference as well, which we'll see when I show you an example. So just like when we use the alpha index, whenever we use the external cause index, we find the code there first, and then we double check it in the tabular. If this is all Greek to you, that's totally fine. We will do examples, so don't worry. Okay, so here is an example we're going to look at. A patient presents with a contusion of the left cheek that resulted from a fist fight. It's the initial encounter, okay? So if you've not taken medical terminology yet, or you're just not brushed up on that, contusion's a bruise. It looks like he sustained it, or they sustained it from a fist fight. So let's break this down a little bit, okay? So when we're looking at this, we say contusion to the left cheek. That's going to be the only injury that we have listed, right? We don't have any other information about what happened or what injuries were sustained. We only know he's got a contusion on the left cheek. So the main term there is going to be contusion. Why is that? It's because left cheek describes the location of the contusion, okay? So if you're having trouble looking at main terms, hopefully that helps a little bit. And then the supplemental information that we have is that it was sustained during a fist fight. And also we know that this is the initial encounter. So this is the first time the patient is being treated for this condition. And this initial encounter describes the stage of the treatment. So we could have a follow-up or subsequent treatment or something like that. But right now we know this is the initial encounter. This is the first time they're being seen for this injury. Okay, so when we are considering this circumstance, what we want to look at is our guidelines first, okay? And this is the guideline that is going to be most useful for us when we're considering this situation. And this is discussing external causes, and this is in your guidelines. That's at the front of your ICD-10-CM. But it states that the external causes of morbidity codes, so that's our external cause codes, should never be sequenced as the first listed diagnosis. And so this is telling us this is how we're going to sequence this. We know that we would use our external cause codes after our primary first listed diagnosis. Okay, so that's what it's helping us there. So here's how we're going to sequence it. A patient here, got it again. A patient presents with a contusion to the left cheek resulted from a fist fight. So the first listed diagnosis is going to be that contusion, the left cheek, initial encounter. Why? Because that's the only actual injury we know about. The other diagnosis, that's a fist fight. So that is going to be our external cause. Okay. Now, what might be helpful here, hold on, let me go back here. Fist fight is also the initial encounter. So if we ever see initial encounter in the description of the injury, it's going to apply to every part of that, that documentation. So if we need it to describe fist fight, it's okay to use it there as well, okay? So let me go to the document camera next, and we will look at this in the actual manual. So if you wanted to pause it right now and go ahead and try to find it yourself, that would be great. And then you can resume and follow along with me if you'd like. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and try to find it together. Now today I am using the AMA manual, which I don't usually use, but I wanted to show it to you in this manual as well. So you'll notice that I do not have this tabbed. That's because I normally use the Bucks right here, and that one is super tabbed. But today I wanted to use this one. So we could kind of look at some of the differences in it and just see that it does work the same way as the Bucks. Okay, so if you were looking for the guidelines, they start on page 1. They're right here, and you could go through here and find the guidelines that we've discussed, and any of the other guidelines we've had from any of the other videos are right here. So in case you were wondering where I'm getting all of that information, if it differs significantly from the Bucks, it does not. It's right there at the front. So we are going to then go to so this is what we're coding. The contusion, left cheek, initial encounter, also fist fight, initial encounter. So we'll go to the alpha to start because that's our first listed diagnosis, and we're going to look up contusion. And what I like about this manual is that their alpha is actually better cross-referenced than the Bucks. So there's actually more ways to find codes in this manual than the Bucks, but otherwise they are very, very similar. Okay, so you were looking for contusion. Okay, so contusion, it looks like, is on page 74. And cheek is listed right here at the top. If you want, you can use your highlighter. Go ahead and highlight it. I like to highlight anything I'm working with, but you just highlight what works for you. And this is sending us to S00.83. And as you'll see here in the AMA, it has a little check mark. And if you look down at the bottom, there's a little guide here, and that tells you there are additional characters required. So we are going to double check it. We would always double check it. So even if there was no check mark there, you need to double check it in the tabular. Okay, but this is where we're going to start. S0083. And we are going to look that up in the tabular, which is over here. Okay. And S00 starts on page 966 in this manual. Okay, and what you want to pay attention to here is S00. At the top of the category, it has initial encounter, subsequent encounter, sequela listed as the appropriate 7th character. So every code from category S00 is going to need 7 characters, and it's going to be, the final character is going to be A, D, or S. Okay, so we are looking for S00.83. Okay, and it's over on this page, which is 967, and 00.83, contusion to other part of the head. That is what we've been referred to, and that's in the alpha is telling us that is where cheek is going to be is going to be covered under this code. Okay, so it's okay that it doesn't exactly state what was in the alpha. It's still referring us to that code. Another difference you're going to notice from the bucks, if you use that, is instead of just a red X or something like that, it actually has a little blue box here that has the check mark, an X, and 7th written. And I know it's super tiny here that you might not be able to see it. But it gives you a lot more information here about what's needed. So that X is telling us you are going to need a placeholder. The check is telling us that we need additional characters. And the 7 is telling us that we have 7 characters that are required for this code. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how many characters we currently have. We need 7. We know from over here that it needs to be A, D, or S. Since we already know that it is initial encounter, right? We know that our final character is going to be A, initial encounter. So when we come over here, we know we need 7 characters. We currently only have 5. So we are going to do a placeholder X. And then our final character is going to be A, S00.83XA. And that's going to give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters, with our final character being A for initial encounter. So it's going to fully describe this primary condition that we're looking at. Okay, so our second diagnosis, if you will, is going to be our external cause code here. So we are looking for fist fight. All right, now I'm going to tell you right now, because I've done this quite a few times, that fist fight is not going to be listed. I mean, I think it's listed in the alpha, but it's going to send you to assault. So the more that you deal with fights, if you see that code very often, you're going to just remember it's going to send you to assault. But I'm going to show you in the table itself, so that way you are familiar with it. All right, in external cause codes, start on page 404. And if you haven't been in it yet, or you've been confused about it, didn't know where to find things, so it starts on page 404 in this AMA version, and it's listed just like the alpha index. It's got main terms here that are bolded, and then subterms that are indented and double indented if they are even more specific. Okay, but right now we're looking at fight. So why did I say fight instead of fist fight? Because fist is describing the type of fight. Okay, so whenever we're talking about main terms, we want to see what is being described, and that's going to be our main term. Fight is being described by fist, correct? So let's go ahead and look up F and see what we find. Okay, on 428, I have fight, and then in parentheses, I know it's hard to read, hand, fists, or foot. Don't know what a foot fight is, but apparently it's in there, and it is directing you to C assault, comma, fight. So like I said, that's something you'll get used to. But I wanted to show you that this is how it is cross-referenced, just like the alpha. So we're going to go ahead and look up assault. And on page 417, you guys can see it. It is down at the bottom here. We have assault that starts here. And then right down here is fight, hand, fist, foot, or unarmed. And it is sending us to Y04.0. And most of the time, codes from the external cause index are going to be like W, Y, X. They're usually towards the end. If you're dealing with like things related to poisoning, that might be in more like the T section, but most of the time, it's going to be an activity code or something like that that's going to start with a WXY, kind of in that area, okay? So that kind of helps you be sure what you're looking at whenever you see those multiple choice questions that have a lot of different options. It can help you narrow down, hey, I know I'm looking for an external cause code that should most likely be WX or Y. Like I said, it says W0 or W04.0. It also has that little check that's telling us we need additional characters. Regardless, we would still double check it. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at W04. All the way in the back. Like I said, I don't have tabs on this. It's easier if you have tabs. So I would always recommend you use tabs. Okay, it looks like 1206 is going to be the page number. And we are looking at Y04. And Y04 is assault by bodily force. And it is telling us assault by unarmed brawl or fight, Y04.0. And then this blue box is, again, it's the same thing. It's got a check mark, an X, and a 7th. So we know we need 7 characters. We'll know we'll need additional characters, and we know we'll need placeholder. Now this one, it's saying we need 7 characters. We currently have 1, 2, 3, 4 characters. Y04.0 is only 4 characters, right? So let's go back and check at the head of the category. So if you ever see these boxes, you need to check back at the top of the category, and here it tells you where the category starts. Usually it'll be just that main code, but occasionally it'll be the very top of the section. And here it's telling us that the section for assault is X92 through Y09. So you just need to look back until you see one of these boxes, okay? And that'll be the top of the category generally. And so this is telling us the 7th character for each code from this category should be A, D, or S. And again, that's initial, subsequent, or sequela. We already know we have an initial encounter. So again, we will need to use A. But since we only have 4 characters in this code, we need to use 2 placeholders. Okay, so that is what your final code is going to look like, Y040XXA, okay? And so that is fully describing this situation. We've got the contusion, and it's the initial encounter, and we also have an external cause code here, okay? So let's go back and double check my answers. And see how we did. Okay, S00.83XA, Y04.0XXA. Okay, so we have fully described this situation. We've used our external cause index. We've used placeholders. So we've really extensively described what's going on with this patient. So I just kind of wanted to show you guys that. And so you can really feel comfortable when you're asked to provide an external cause code, okay? It's not going to happen all the time. Not every circumstance are you going to be asked to do this. But I want you to feel really confident when you do have to. If you have questions about this situation or other specific examples from your textbook or workbook or something else, go ahead and put that in the discussion and we can work through those together as well. All right, that is all I have for you. Thank you.